let's get started because we do have so much in here to cover, and I see people are still coming in. So Tess has not done her homework. The dog ate it. I get it. It's okay. That would have been interesting for them to eat a video, but well, you can watch it afterward. We'll catch you up. So that's fine. So this is part 2. And don't worry if you missed part 1, because we're going to bring you back up to speed and we're going to give you the meat of, you'd be surprised what she eats. I wouldn't. No, I would not. After having 2 dogs and a horse myself that are constantly into something or another. Anyway, we're doing part 2 today, and we're going to bring you up to speed on part 1. And part 1, we told you the why. So if you're here for part 2, we're going to tell you how to do it. So this is going to be all the specifics. If you don't have a pen, get one. Of course, I'll send out the recording and the show notes and all of that, but you're gonna have some aha moments here. I guarantee you're gonna have aha moments today, and there are things that you're gonna want to rush right out and implement immediately. So, as usual, let's get our homework out of the way, Sabina. So, and tell everybody who we are, so we can get rid of these slides and just jump into things. So, I'm gonna let you kick it off. Tell us about yourself, Hiveologie, and your other side business. I put in air quotes.
Side business. I love it. So everybody, so nice to be here today. Thank you, Kimberly. You know, I love doing these with you, and I love your audience. So this is exciting for us. Part 1 was so much fun. So today we're going to just dig deeper, and you guys will get lots of hows and how-tos. I am the founder and CEO of Hiveologie. We are an award-winning e-learning company. I've spent over 25 years in professional education, pretty much exclusively, about, I'd say 80%, 90% in the real estate industry. And we've always looked at education as a powerful tool for growth, revenue, recruitment, retention, etc. We have an ed tech component, we build content, we do all kinds of cool stuff. And now we're doing education marketing a lot. And this is what we wanted to talk to you about today. The other side business that we're talking about is our social mission, which is we donate 3% of all of our sales to honeybee in particular, conservation efforts, wild bees too. We have a separate side, sort of sister company called Sweetwood Mountain. And sweetwoodmountain.com is where we're offering things like honey focused gifts and things. And 100% of the profits from that company go back into bee conservation efforts. So that's our little side gig, which is a lot of fun. How's that?
It's so cool. And did you notice that I put a little bee in the little in the video in our last video? So there's a cute little bee. Yes. So
I did.
Love our bees. You gotta love them. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Kimberly Mackey, and my company is New Home Solutions Consulting. I work with builders of all sizes who are trying to grow and do things the right way. So I always say that sales should be the engine that drives your train rather than what runs it off the tracks. So, I work with your processes, your procedures. I start with a SWOT analysis so we can figure out what the heck is going on in your company and then come up with a plan from there, because there's really no one size fits all. But right now, the market's doing what the market's doing, because it's always doing something, right? And we got to be prepared. So these are the things that, regardless of the market, you need to be doing. And, the builders that I'm working with, everybody's starting to do a little bit of having a little ajna, I understand. But those that are working their plan and continuing to work their plan and not get distracted are having far more success right now because they were prepared. We had the stuff in place to do it. So let me know if I can help you with any of that. There's no need to panic over the market right now. The underlying conditions are still good despite whatever is going on. So anyway, if we do the right stuff, we can help a lot of buyers into their new home. So that being said, let's get a plug in. It's not too late. We're getting close, so to where it's too late, but the Home Builder Digital Marketing Summit is coming up in Atlanta on the 24th and 25th. Kevin, we're excited about this. I'm going to be joining Kevin in person there. So super excited about it. We actually sold out of the leadership track. And due to some creative floor plans and space shifting, we managed to squeeze in a couple more seats. I think we may have 2 left, Kevin. So if you want to know what you need to be doing right now, leadership wise, marketing wise, because this is already the premier marketing summit in our industry. I mean, like, and just the people who are going to be there, like when I say surround yourself with smart people, they're all there. So I'm super excited. So Kevin, you and I may be present company excluded on that. No, I'm just kidding. No, we're not. We are smart people too. But really there's super smart people that are coming to this, and I look forward to it. This is my first year partnering with them to provide the leadership track. And of course, big shouts out to Blue Gypsy too, doing the online sales track. And she's got a good crowd coming for that. And I've seen some of that program. It's going to be amazing. So there you go. Now I'm going to stop the screen share. Buildermarketingsummit.com. You can register or learn more about it. It's right there on your screen. Okay, done with the slides, done with all the housekeeping. Now, let's bring everybody up to speed on what we spent an hour talking about on the last video, Sabina. So, shifting buyer behaviors.
Yeah, we talked about what's happening in both marketing, but also in shifting buyer behaviors. I think everybody's probably on the same page with this already, so we're not going to spend a lot of time. But if you want to dig into this, jump into the first part. We're really talked about what's happening and what's been happening with buyer behavior. One, of course, is buyers today are a whole lot more educated. They're more skeptical. They're certainly more impatient. And we know for a fact that they research literally everything first, and they form their impressions before they ever reach out to you, before they ever show up, before you ever talk to them. So we have to change the way that we interact with them in order to accommodate for this. We also know, and Kimberly, you know this better than anybody, that sales language triggers resistance. So with education, we know that we can refocus this because people want to learn and not to be sold. Although, of course, through the learning process, we can do both. They're overwhelmed by the size of the decision in many cases. They might crave clarity or safety or confidence. And we know that buyers want a guide. They want someone who can explain things like why this home, why now, why you as a builder, why this property, why anything that relates to what you're doing in your community. So we know that for sure in shifting buyer behavior. But we also know the sales funnel has changed. And Kimberly, I don't know if you want to jump into that or if you want me to, but that's a big difference. The old idea of like warming them up later, we know that doesn't work. They need to be warmed up before you ever talk to them. So that's not a thing anymore.
It is. I mean, buyers are waiting so much later in the sales process to even identify themselves to us. Yeah. That's the key. And now, I mean, we've seen web traffic. Actually, it's really weird. It's a mixed bag. So either your web traffic has completely fallen off a cliff and hasn't come back yet, or the web traffic that fell off a cliff in August has started to uptick quite a bit, but they're not pulling the trigger. So they're not filling out the contact us form. They're not doing the things, but they're researching your website and they're playing with your interactives. They're in there like researching, but not identifying themselves yet. And this is that opportunity. And I think it's a huge missed opportunity. Yeah. We've been telling builders for years, you should blog, blah, blah, blah. Well, that lasted for most builders about 5 blog posts. And then they kind of quit on it because they were like, oh, well, I didn't get a sale off of it in 5 minutes. And so why do it? So this is more. We're talking about more. This is reaching your buyers where they are and helping them to come along in this process and getting them to the point where they're comfortable, because people want to do business with people they know, like, trust, and more importantly, remember when they're ready to make a decision. Yeah. So this is your tool to be able to do this, but it's going to require some forethought, some planning, and perhaps even some help, but not always. So don't get discouraged. It's not a terrifying thing when we've got the how-to for it. But I love something Sabina has said to me since I've known her. She's like, attention is the new currency. And that's so true. So, we've been away from push marketing for so long. We've been into the pull marketing and trying to pull people into our stratosphere and getting them to engage with us. That's what social media is all about. That's what those opportunities are. That's why you have bloggers, influencers, yada, yada, yada. They're trying to pull people into where they already are. And now people are going willingly. They got used to it. They got used to the shift. But if you don't grab their attention and you're doing the same old boring stuff that everybody else is doing, boom, next. I mean, seriously, the world has ADHD. Let's just accept that and move on, right?
Yeah, and that's a big part of the strategy that we're going to talk about today. That alone is a really important component of this. I mean, we know that anybody who becomes a trusted source of information is what they're calling an influencer or whatever. I mean, that is what attention is all about. That is when you become the trusted source of information and hopefully aspiration. You'll stop chasing leads and you're going to start attracting them. It's that simple. So this is the strategy that the biggest brands in the world are implementing. This is working. We know that. You've seen all the money that anybody who's even an influencer in even the smallest way, what they're doing out there. This is what we're going to teach you how to do. So we know also that traditional marketing is failing, not just builders, but pretty much everybody right now. This shift to something like education is the power dynamic that we're going to talk about, but it's also what we want you to think about. And to your point, this does not have to be difficult, doesn't have to be expensive, it doesn't have to be a massive strategy to start with. If all of you do even a small part of this, you're going to be well ahead of 99% of all of the other builders in the marketplace. This much we know for sure. So if you want the whole strategy on the why, go back and check out our hour on part 1, because we go into that deeply so you'll understand this completely. But this is sort of the highlight, what we just talked about.
And it's not just one medium that we're talking about. So it's not just a social media strategy. It's not just a video strategy. It's not just a blog strategy or a vlog strategy. It's a combination of things. You can deploy this in any way that you want, except thinking of it as advertising. So, I had a builder who approached me, and you and I talked about this in the last section, who said, I want to start a podcast. So podcasting is a medium, right? It's a great tool that you could use. The thing is, people are not going to turn in if you're just an advertorial, right? They're like, no, forget it. So it can't be, oh, look at us, look at us, look at us. We're amazing. You say you're amazing by showing what you're doing and giving the whys and how that benefits the buyer. So we're always speaking in buyer speak or audience speak. So it's in terms of that benefit to them and really educating them, like it's the how to and why for them. So not, oh, we're the best builder in the world and here's why. It's not that. It's very subtle, but it is a shift from this push, look at us. Oh, great elevation, great floor plan. Oh, people moved in. Yay. Take a picture of a dog. Like it's more like we're giving them the meat. We're giving them those things that they are truly afraid of. And we know this stuff. We're the experts on this stuff. We just don't articulate it very well. And I always think that that's been the downfall of builders all along and why people are so afraid. In the past, when homes were at a premium, new homes were at a premium, we were traditionally 30 to 40% higher to buy new. And now that is not the case. It's level, people. In fact, in many cases, because of builder incentives, it's actually more advantageous to buy new. But people are still afraid to do it. Why are they so afraid? Because we haven't told them about how great it is to own new and how simple we can really make this process. And I mean, most of us are building some sort of quick move-in inventory. People don't even have to go all the way through the process. They don't have to build it. But that may be something that they're afraid of. So we got to really figure out where those fears are and get rid of our own bias, because we have our own confirmation bias on this, and really address it straight on, so that the buyer can pick it up again where they are in this process.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's a great way to talk about this. I mean, in the whole first session, we really were focused on this idea of and I think this is really important because I don't want anybody to think that this is like a fluffy strategy. This is not like something that doesn't lead directly to revenue, recruitment, retention. Like everything we're talking about is practical and puts in the end dollars in the bank for all of us, but also serves the needs of our customers. So it puts this together in a way that makes this good for everybody. We spent a lot of time talking about those things. Those are all my favorite R's. But the other big R's that we like are retention and referrals, which is a lot of what we're going to talk about today as well. But we're also, Kimberly, going to go into like some real examples, including a little mini case study that I want to talk to you guys about, because we want to show you how a builder has done this. And that'll, I think, take everything that we're going to teach you today into a real application so you can see exactly how you might apply something like this and then pick the parts that you think are sexy to get rolling at your end.
Yeah. So
yeah,
I think we broke it down into parts here. So
yes.
For those of you following along, taking notes here. So one is onboarding your existing. So there's a definite tool for this, which actually assists your sales team in setting better expectations and part of the sales process. So we've got that. And then keeping customers coming back, keeping customers engaged. And again, that retention, that referral piece, and then the marketing piece, how do we attract new people with this? So those are kind of our three tiers that we're going to try to get to as quickly as we can today and go through this. So let's very quickly go through onboarding and turning buyers to creating that on lifetime relationship with buyers. So, I think anytime you educate, happy educated buyers are what we all want, because there is nothing worse than dealing with that buyer who's freaked out over something they just didn't know.
Right.
I use the example always of concrete cracks. 100% of the time, concrete cracks. Man, buyers freak out because concrete cracks. Why? Because we didn't educate them on it. So something as simple a concept as that can totally change your customer experience funnel and the user experience, I guess, is the actual word I'm looking for. So do you want to go into that and give some ideas that we can do around that?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So the way that I always think about it is like step one of your lifetime relationship post-sale is onboarding. This is what you immediately need to do to deliver a good experience, right? So I think what we need to do is rethink it a little bit, like how Kimberly's describing it. This is our first chance to basically create two things. We can create loyalty, first of all, but the second thing is we can create raving friends, which leads obviously to referrals, repeat business, and all that good stuff. So most of people will think about this in a pretty simplistic way. We don't see a lot of good onboarding happening, frankly, in any business, to be quite honest. The truth is, for some reason, once the sale happens, a lot drops off. We see that often. So this could start with developing an outreach around every question you normally get about the home, the services, the neighborhood. This is your sort of welcome onboarding model. And that's as simple as you taking what you already know people need to know, what they already ask you, everybody, always has the same 20 questions or whatever it is. Take that knowledge and turn that into level one. And that can be things like, oh my God, Kimberly, there's a million things. Your concrete one, I think, is such a great example. It's everything from what they need to know in the sort of the first 90 days, let's say, from an onboarding perspective. This is layer one.
But the thing with that, most of us have that written already.
I'm sure.
Because we have that last quality control walk, right? That the presentation to the home, let me introduce you to all the whatever warranty walk, whatever you call customer care walk, whatever you call it, where you throw all the stuff about everything and all homeowner maintenance at them right before they go to closing and write the biggest check of their life. Makes complete sense if you don't think about it. Like, they're not remembering any of that. So while that's still a great idea to meet that person, if you followed it up afterwards with bite-sized chunks of things to help them digest that material, remember that material. Oh, what do I do when I can't figure out why this light switch won't work, or I plugged into an upside down plug and my vacuum cleaner won't come on? Oh, well, that's because it's a switched outlet. Okay. So now, like, you can break it down into these little tiny, 3 to 5 minute little chunks of things that enhance that user experience so much and create a whole library, which, side note, with the way AI searches your websites now, you're going to become the leading voice, the leading expert on all these things. So if you had people prepared for what it's like to own one of your homes before they ever consider buying one of your homes, that's a really great place to start.
Yeah.
Just my opinion.
And it's not hard to imagine how all these little educational nuggets will work. It's everything from you improve customer service, you reduce service calls. I mean, you actually save money. This is less hassle for you if you do this well. You remove things like mistakes, and you guarantee the experience your people will have, your buyers will have. Like, that's a big deal. If you've created this in advance and you're delivering it properly, you're not relying on one buyer trying to explain it to a neighbor wrong because they had it wrong or whatever is going on.
And they're doing that. They've all got Facebook groups.
Exactly.
It's not pretty.
So I think it's both thought leadership, which is huge. I mean, owning that conversation is so important. But the second thing is you're not delivering misinformation either. Like, that's what's so critical. You are controlling the narrative, which is really important. And then obviously this leads to the next phase, which is all about referrals and, re-engagement and long-term retention. So all of that to say, you want to have something simple that delivers on that, and you can certainly keep adding to your little library of educational nuggets. We'll talk to you about different ways that you can design that, and we went into it in much greater detail in the first part, by the way. You probably want to go back and listen to that, but we'll talk about it a little bit later.
But use your CRM, like set up a drip campaign for after closing with these little nuggets in there, these little educational campaigns, and then refer them back to the site where it all lives so that they can reference it later. They go, oh, wait a minute, I saw something about that. Like an email, it could be a text message. It could be on social. It could be like, this is content you are going to use in multiple places.
It's a YouTube strategy. It's all kinds of stuff for sure.
Is anybody got anything like this, or have you started down this path? I'm curious. This seems like an engaged group here today. So in the chat, let us know. Are you working on anything like this? Have you started thinking about how to deploy anything like this? Let us know. And we'll keep moving while we're waiting on the chat to catch up with us here.
Yeah, for sure.
So we all strive to make a happy customer, create a raving fan. So how can we use this to have those touch points to keep that buyer once they've been a raving fan, they bought our home maybe, or they're thinking about buying our home, maybe even realtors, to give them those touch points that they can, that keeps that relationship going. Let's hit some high points on things that you could actually do and what that content looks like.
Yeah, I'd love to. So now this is your long-term retention strategy. So this is post 90 days. You do this literally forever. This is you're going to touch them once a week. You're going to touch them as often as you feel your strategy requires. And you're going to touch different audiences. So the content might change. So we can't get into every different type of audience, but to Kimberly's point, you might be focusing on, let's say, agents. Maybe you really want to make sure that you're engaging agents, or you really want to make sure that you're just engaging your consumers for referrals, or maybe it is your vendor community. Who knows? There could be lots of different audiences that you're going after. And we'll talk about that a little bit further in a minute, but really what you want to do is develop an education marketing system that allows you to continue to guide post-sale. That's really what you're doing. So you are taking all the onboarding topics we just discussed. Now you've got a little library of those, but now you're going a little longer, a little deeper on what your buyers need long-term to keep you top of mind. You maintain thought leadership position. You create the best customer service of any builder literally on the planet. Your goal is then to drive referrals and repeat business, whatever that looks like for you, depending on the type of product that you're selling. So like before, you want to start with, in terms of building the strategy, which audience are you focusing on? And we call those your avatars. So this is like, if you have 4 different avatars and one's an agent and one's a consumer or a regular buyer and one's a vendor and one's a whatever, city planner, who knows, whoever you're going after. Those are your avatars. So you got to pick your avatar, and then you're going to list their pain points. You're going to list the things. I think
we should probably point out there, because that was new terminology for me to learn, that we call our different R's. Because to me, an avatar was like a persona or somebody who was talking to you, not receiving the information from you. So that was new terminology. See, this is what happens when you hang out in a room with smart people. You learn stuff.
It's true. And in education, that's what we call them anyway. But, it's also a marketing term to a degree, but it's really new because avatars as a concept have really sort of grown but it's really just who your different audience members are. Just think of it that way, when you put them in little groups. But they all have different pain points. They all have different needs post-sale. So for instance, if it's one of your regular buyers, somebody's bought your home, what are some of the topics you might throw at them? You might be doing the obvious stuff to me, seasonal home care and maintenance. You might go into energy efficiency and cost savings. It might be lifestyle and community stuff, things like insider guides, things about schools or events or shops or whatever. Like you could be very granular about your communities. Neighborhood updates and community projects as it relates sort of to bigger things could be happening on a regular basis. You could just be going with design and upgrade inspiration. Maybe you're a luxury brand and you want to just keep it really high end and really sexy. So you're focused on that and that's what you want to be known for. Maybe most of what you do is design focused, and it's not just you, but perhaps it's also your partners and your vendors and people that you work with, You might want to talk
things for
about
built-ins or up,
yeah, exactly.
upgrading your closets and your suppliers can help you with
Right.
all of that stuff. They already have stuff like that.
Exactly. That's where you can get a ton of content from. Another really good area is things like anything that I would consider to be sort of long-term protection or risk management and value growth. So maybe you're explaining warranties to them or insurance updates, or maybe it's how to maintain resale value. That's a huge bonus, I think, if you could do something like that. Guides on
If you're
refinancing.
selling in a community, we want to talk about lawn care and lawn care maintenance, because if they're not taking care of their yard, it's affecting your ability to sell
100%.
more homes.
100%.
Yeah, I mean,
Absolutely.
yeah, think about this too in terms of what's also going to help you in the community.
Right. And it's important that you're not just doing sort of boring service updates and you're not just doing upsells. You can always build in a call to action everywhere. The people are going to expect that. Nobody's saying that you can't ever ask for something. You might be teaching people how to refer you, for instance, but one of the most important things you can do is just remember that this is like a lifelong homeowner education series or a lifelong agent education series or whatever it is that you're doing. And the other thing I'll tell you, which is kind of the fun way to design this, to make your investment even sort of more valuable to you, is look at areas where the content is very similar for all your different audience types. So you're repurposing content, and that makes things a lot simpler too. So there's lots of things that you can do. We always do that when we build out a strategy for one of our clients. How can I sort of re-engineer this or backwards engineer it or whatever so that we still have content that can serve more than one audience, but also perhaps more than one channel? It's like a
Yes.
video can also be long format, short format. It could be social, it could be YouTube, it could be email. I mean, there's so many, it could be a guide of some kind or downloadable that goes with it. Like there's so much you can do that helps you build out an education strategy.
Infographics. Like a
Exactly.
quick info, like, so you do the video and then you have the infographic that goes with it
Right.
that is downloadable. Then that's feeding into your marketing channels and into
Right.
your CRM. Like, think of so like I said, this is not just one medium. This is multiple mediums. You need a full on strategy with this, but building that content, and then where does it go? How do we distribute it? How many different ways can we distribute it? Snippets. People have ADHD. Give them a snippet that then takes them to the full content.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more, Kimberly. And and so everybody doesn't feel too overwhelmed by this. You can start with one layer at a time. You don't need to unload this whole strategy all at once if you don't want to, or if you don't have the time or the budget or whatever. Keep it simple. Start with your most important places and people first. Where do they live already? Which platform are they on? That kind of stuff. You really can keep this to a minimum to begin with. The most important thing is that you start with this. We've seen lots of people talk about this stuff, and then of course nothing ever happens. But both of us can tell you that what we know about what's happening in the space, there's very few people doing this well, or at all.
Or at all. Mostly
Or
it's
at all.
at all.
Or at all. Yeah.
And I think people think I have to hire a big videography company. I have to do this. No, you
Nope.
don't. Like we all have these. So, for those of us who,
But
I don't even know what all these cameras do. Okay. Like I have so many cameras on my phone. And so if you're getting, you're getting a gimbal and you've got lighting and you've got some microphones, man, go to town.
yeah.
Just have it scripted, have it planned, make sure that it's the right length for what you're trying to hit, and make sure that it addresses whatever audience you're trying. So you create this content strategy,
Mhm.
and that's where either of us or many other companies could help you come up with that strategy that you can then go implement yourself and maybe just touch base. So if budget's a concern right now, I get it, but have a plan, have somebody look at it to make sure it's not salesy, it's not promotional, that it truly is educational, because the goal here is when we educate, that gives buyers comfort and they're going to go to the place where they feel most comfortable.
Yeah. And to your point, I think everything that is more real, less polished, tends to do better these days, as we know. So things
Absolutely.
like, I call it guerrilla video. Just take your phone to or go shoot some stuff, shoot yourself, decide who it is that is the face of things. And if you really can't deal with the idea of yourself being, or anybody in your company being the face, then use animation tools, use something, there's lots of stuff that works in the marketplace. It's not as effective as building a brand around an individual. So keep that in mind, but it's still an option, you
Yeah,
know.
explainer videos are, where they have the little stick
Yeah,
figures, or you could get an avatar, but really authenticity is what
yeah.
sells. And people do they don't want you to be perfect. In fact, they prefer that you aren't.
Mhm.
So, it's that authenticity that people truly do relate to,
Yeah.
and get over yourself. Like, I was like, I'm looking at myself today. I was like, what should I wear? What da, 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 do I got to do my makeup? I got to do my hair. Is it hair day? Like, just get over yourself, because you look like what you look like. There's nothing you can do about it. This is who I am, people. So with a minimal amount of Zoom filter on here.
Just a little.
Just a little, not a whole
A
lot.
little.
But like it's who you are. So, you get used to it, forget and get your teams involved. Like this doesn't have to be one person. This doesn't have to be just the marketing person or the marketing coordinator. Like you've got team members who have expertise. Tap them.
100%.
Yes.
100%. So okay, so what we wanted to show you was two things that were highly practical as well. So we've already given you a whole bunch of stuff that you could be doing. But Kimberly, what do you say we walk through the framework, the actual steps to what you do if you have no educational content yet, what you can do in like 5 steps?
Where do you start?
Okay. So this is your practical stuff. So grab a pen. Here's what you want to do first. We already know, number one, always define your niche first. If you do not know who you are as a builder, if you do not know who you are as a vendor or supplier or whatever it is and what you're about, everything is much harder to do. It's so much simpler if you can define it. And we're going to go into a case study in a minute where I can show you exactly why that matters. So even if you're a general builder, by the way, you still have to have a clear message, a voice, a mission, a vision, something
Well,
about who
you're
you
either an
are.
affordable builder, you
Right.
are, yeah, you're this area's premier
Mountains,
builder,
luxury, yes.
you're something. So
100%. So, whatever it is, you need to define your niche clearly. Step number one. Step number two is now define your audiences, or as we say, your avatars. So, because remember, each of them has different needs and also different, frankly, special opportunities, or special opportunities even for you to stand out. So that's the next one. So you can decide, we're going to go through an exercise to show you what that is, but think about how many different avatars you have. And then normally what we suggest is, of course, choose the most important one first. So if it's straight to consumer, great. These are your buyers, fine. If it's real estate agents, fine. If it's, just one particular type of demographic, like maybe you are focused on seniors or whatever it is, that's what you want to do first. So now you've got a niche and you define your avatars and you've hopefully chosen the most important one that you want to start with first. Then you want to think about who they are. So, and you go through this exercise for all of them if you want, or just start with the first one. But Who are they? What are the demographics? Like the buyer types. What is it that you know about them? Are they a particular age group, demographic, part of the country, you know, part of like stage of life, like a senior versus a, new home? There's lots of things like that. It could be somebody who's a veteran. It could be somebody who's moving from one place to the next. All that kind of stuff. You want to get to very clearly know them to the point where you can really get as granular as possible. The better you define them, the better, the easier this gets. And this
While
is,
avoiding fair housing violations, I might add. So
this is a good point. Thank you
we
for
we
mentioning
come up
that.
with trends, overall
Yes,
trends that are not a fair housing violation.
that's
So
true. That's true.
yes,
I think this is really more about defining who they are so that you can define what they need.
you
Because
find their pain points. Yeah.
exactly. Next step, list their pain points. But most importantly, the pain points you can solve, or the aspirations you can fulfill, or even what they need to believe about, let's say, you, or what happens after they've they've purchased your product and now they're living in your home or your community. What do they need to believe? So the different topics might be obviously different for different avatars and different audiences, but you're talking about things like, how does this lifestyle feel? How are these homes built? How are they different from your competitors? How sustainable maybe are they? What's the quality built into the product? How are other people already thriving in your homes? Basically, how objections get solved before the sales call. These are everything that you can say that somebody's going to ask a question about. You've already thought through this. These are going to be your nuggets. Even things like
You
how
can
agents
use
can confidently sell these homes. How do agents sell these homes for you?
and you can use third party as part of your strategy here.
Yes.
So use that your agent VIPs, for instance, or your customer testimonials.
Mhm.
So, those can all be woven into this educational component. So probably you've gone a little bit down that strategy of getting those testimonials. Now is your time to weave that in to more of this how to.
Yeah.
I would also add to your list, though, the one thing, define whether we're targeting pre or post sale.
Oh, absolutely. That's a big part of this is which right now when you think about whether you're talking about lead gen, you're talking about retention, you're talking just about referrals, whatever it is, that will drive that list for sure. Absolutely. It's a very good point.
Yeah. So, and wherever it is, now understand whatever you're creating for pre-sale can also be used post-sale, and
100%.
what you're creating for post-sale can also be used pre-sale. But who's the audience for now, the avatar for now that you're targeting, and then because it's more important to speak to them and create that content. Then we can repurpose, weave it in, video edit it. Like there's so many different things we can do with this tool.
100%. And you probably noticed that a lot of what we're talking about is the how. That's your lowest hanging fruit. All the hows. And all the hows by going through this exercise, but also listening to your salespeople, also listening to people that are in your properties. The how, the how, the how. That's your low hanging fruit, the easiest stuff to do. Very simple first step to create structural educational content that naturally leads to or from each stage of the buying process. So that's really the easy button, honestly. And it's also repurposing what you already know, and perhaps also just working with others, like other experts, to Kimberly's point. That's the easy button. All these 3 or 4 points that we're making, very simple. This will deliver sticky, scalable education, honestly, with a very low investment. This is the core of the strategy. There's lots of other levels you can take this to. We'll talk about that if we can today. Maybe we'll do part 3, but we'll see where that goes. But anyway, just want to make sure you understand that that's really where you want to start, is that list that we just walked through.
Yeah. And I think part of this is taking that step back. So, I do traction EOS with my builders.
Mhm.
And sometimes the hardest exercise to get started on that is to figure out who we are
Right.
and get that narrowed down, because oftentimes builders have such a in their mind, they have this really broad focus that when it comes down to it, it is more narrow. Who are we? What are our values? What's our mission? And make sure that we're supporting that mission throughout everything we're doing. So that's step one. The next thing is always defining the sales process, because you can't create that visual pipeline in your CRM if we don't know the stages of the sale and the stages of post sale. So we have to give it some sort of linear look, understanding it isn't always linear and sometimes people jump around, but in order for us to see it visually, you have to give it some sort of linear look. And when you go through those steps, then you can target, okay, at this step, what's the most important things that people need to know? So if they're at the stage where they want to get a loan, for instance, what's the most important thing you need to know? If you're doing the 55 plus, if you're designated 55 plus or you're in age targeted, then doing something like a HECM loan might be a scary thing. So we could partner with a lender. We could talk about HECM loans and how that's solving a lot of life challenges for the buyer in that particular demographic. So, there are so many things that you can do if you really break it down into, what are the steps? How do people buy my homes? What are the steps that they have to take in order to get there? And then once they've signed the purchase agreement, what are the steps beyond that? And then once they've closed and moved in, we've handed over the keys, what are the steps beyond that? So if you break it down in those 3 phases of the journey, and then pick where you want to start. You may want to start at the very beginning. So, which is the pre-sale process. But some people do really like to dive into more of that expectation setting, the build process, because they can repurpose it in so many different ways for both post and pre-sale.
Yeah, it's really true. It's really true. I mean, talk to your salespeople. They'll probably give you a million things that you can do right off the bat too. This is such an awesome way to build out a library, to build out everything that we've just talked about, and maybe if you like what we could do, what do you think? Should we jump into our little case study and just sort of like give a real example of what this looked like for a particular type of builder?
Yeah, let's talk about
Okay.
what they're actually doing, because I think that'll in our last few minutes. I know this is a lot, guys. So, but it really isn't that complicated when you start narrowing it down. It's that old adage of how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time.
Yeah.
Like once you have a plan and you start executing the plan, like a lot of this falls into place.
Yeah, for sure. And pick this case study will walk you through the same basically 4 or 5 steps we just talked about sort of theoretically. Now let's look at how to apply this to a particular type of builder. So in this particular case, this is a builder that I've just started working with. The strategy that we built out for them includes all of these things. But before we got to the strategy, which I'll tell you a little bit about, we had to do the same thing. So the first was understanding their niche. And in this case, this is a small format or tiny home, affordable, luxury, sustainably built tiny home builder. And in this case, they're kits. They get shipped a kit. So this is the niche, very specific niche. But what was interesting when we dove into all the different avatars, we came up with 7 really big categories. So that was one of the things that surprised me a little bit, because when you start really thinking about who'd be interested in buying these, this is, by the way, a brand new builder too. So they haven't got like a huge database. They haven't got all this stuff. So they're going to use this strategy to attract people to them. This is their lead gen strategy to start with. This is very much about the front end of the funnel. So we went through, and here's the 7 different avatars that we came up with. And I think you'll understand by what we call them, what each of them are. But if you have any questions, drop it in the chat. But I want you to just, if you could, listen to these, because we've got an interesting thing coming up next that I want to sort of offer you guys. So the first is the downsizer. Fairly obvious, right? You're going from a large home to a tiny home. Then you've got the multi-unit homeowner or the backyard builder. One goes in the backyard, one goes on the property somewhere else. You need, right, you need a second unit, you need a in-law suite or whatever it is, for whatever purpose. Then you've got the lifestyle buyer. As you know, from things that you've seen out recently, there's a lot of people excited about this tiny home lifestyle. So there's a big community of people and that's different from the other 2. Then you've got the off-grid seeker or the homesteader, very different type of person again. You've also got the priced out renter. We know that there's going to be a lot of communities that are going to be built in future. I personally think there's a huge tipping point for this type of home in lots of places where a priced out renter might have a chance to own something, because these are obviously smaller, more affordable.
Those are popping up everywhere now. You see them all over the place. We've got several of our frequent attendees of the show that are running that have programs and partnerships with charities and all sorts of things.
Yeah, 100%. Also, of course, there's the real estate agent, broker board association, real estate board, whatever audience as well, because, you know, if you want those people trying to help you sell your stuff, then that's another avatar. And then the last one that we came up with was what we're calling the small scale developer. This is somebody who will buy somewhere between, let's say, 2 and 15 units. They're going to put together a tiny home community, which is also becoming more and more of a thing. So we're going to see more and more developers who are just going to be like, send me the house, whatever it is. And that's going to be something too. So those are the ones that we came up with for this particular group. Any questions, let us know, of course. But what we then went into was, okay, so what are the pain points we solve, the aspirations we fulfill, and what they need to believe for each one. And we went through the process for each one because part of this was also about picking a place to start. Doing all of those right off the bat for a small company, somebody that's new, somebody that's going to be more cash strapped than the next guy, this is going to be difficult. So we also wanted to build the strategy out deep enough at the beginning and do enough analysis that at least we knew a little bit about, okay, clearly we should be going this route, you know, as opposed to this route, and we'll do them next. So every one of those we went through, pain points, etc. And I'm going to give you what those are for one of these, and I'd love you to tell me which one you think it is. And if you guess which of the avatars it is, so it's everything from the downsizer, multi-unit homeowner, lifestyle, off-grid, priced out renter, real estate, and small scale developer, any one of those, I'm going to tell you what we came up with. If you pick the right one, we're going to pick one of you as a winner. If you're interested for a free 1-hour education strategy session with me, if you'd like. So that's what we'll do after this. So I just drop it in the chat. So here's the pain points that are solved for this one particular avatar. My home is too big and too expensive to maintain. I don't want to deal with yard work, repairs, or stairs anymore. I'm overwhelmed by choices, and I'm worried a tiny home means settling for less. Next, aspirations we fulfill. Peace of mind, more freedom, less stress. Smaller space that feels smart, beautiful, and well built. More time for what matters. Maybe it's travel, grandbabies, hobbies, whatever. The legacy move, responsible, elegant, forward thinking. And finally, what they need to believe. This is what we want them to believe about this particular move, this particular builder. This is a luxury right-sized home, not a downgrade. They're not giving up comfort, they're gaining simplicity, and they feel proud, safe, and at ease at this home. That's where we ended up. So that's the experiment that we want you to go through on any one of these. But who do you think this was? I've seen a couple of people already drop answers.
Yeah, we've got Sam was the first, and he says downsizer.
Okay, anybody else?
And how many of you think it's downsizer? Wait, you guys are quiet today. I think
Okay.
we've overwhelmed them.
Sorry, guys, if this is too much. We apologize in advance. You can watch the replay. Anyway, Sam is absolutely correct. It was the downsizer. So that is it. So Sam, you and me for an hour if you're up for it. We'll connect with you after. So
yeah, absolutely. And if you have so we have a lot of builders that are on here who probably have buyers who are downsizing. So when you think about that, you know, think about things in terms of what happens around that. Like the biggest objection we get for right sizing is, what do I do with all my stuff?
Right.
You know, so you can go down these pain point thresholds with whatever this persona, this avatar is, to think about, okay, this is an objection we get all the time from this particular buyer. That's where you start. And you know, and it's the top 3 pain points, maybe. It doesn't have to be 25, because that could be overwhelming. The top 3 things of what do I do? How do I get rid of my stuff? You know, or maybe I don't want to get rid of all my stuff, but my kids don't want it. And what do I do with everything? Because that's where buyers get stuck. When you find those places where buyers get stuck, that's the kind of education that we need in order to help them, educate them on why this is a good idea, and do all the touchy-feelies about, okay, once you have that yard sale, once you have that estate sale, once you divvy it up to the kids, once you do all these things, how much more freedom are you going to have, no longer worrying about things that are just stuff?
Right. That's an awesome way to put it. And that's literally what we did. Like you in what I just explained, we had maybe 3 or 4 points on each, and that was it. And that's all you want. If for some reason you're drawing a blank on any of this, this is a wonderful way to use your favorite GPT tool. Just start brainstorming and pick the ones. It'll all trigger over time. It'll take you probably no more than, a half a day, if that, to do all of this, especially if you're using tools or you're using the people in your world, you'll know what to do with this kind of stuff. Just follow the strategy. The next step is picking your focus. Exactly what you said earlier, Kimberly. This is where you want to pick which stage of the funnel you want to focus on. Leads and deals, supporting your salespeople, reducing objections, pre-selling, onboarding, referrals, whatever it is, retention, etc. That's your next step. And then after that, you want to start with which you already know the best. So you all have an enormous amount of knowledge about your niche and about what you do. Really just start there, focus on the pain points of your avatars. And then that's where you're going to find your learning opportunities, and just keep building. Do not panic about getting it all done right away. You want this to be a rollout. You don't need to deliver it all at once anyway. You want to
This
keep
should
building
definitely
the
be
library.
ongoing.
100%. And we really are talking about short format. So I want to be crystal clear. The strategy we built for these guys was the shortest format imaginable as step one. Two things that we came up with. One was a micro drip training strategy. This meant everything was anywhere from 90 seconds to 15 minutes max, but most of it would be between 90 seconds and 3 or 4 minutes. So this is going to be things like a YouTube podcast style for the longer format, and then things like interviews, site visits, and then each of these hows are covered in a small video. That was the bulk of it. Then we have this other idea that's a whole nother conversation, but we're also going to build for them what's called a nano GPT assistant. This is using a private GPT. It's a closed-end GPT. And all that basically means is somebody has their own little, it's like having a chat GPT all for you that's loaded with information just about your stuff. And people can ask questions of it. So it works 24/7. It acts like a coach almost. That's going to be really, frankly, even smaller potentially. That's why we call it nano. It's very specific. Somebody asks a question, they get an answer. And there's a lot of other benefits for doing that. But those are two of the steps. And then the
They
last,
may get an answer and they get a link to provide it
yes,
to your library of this stuff that you've trained that closed-in GPT on.
100%. The other thing it does, which I think is awesome. And by the way, everybody is going to have one of these. So you need to think about this at some point in the next little while anyway. But this is replacing a lot of service tools and FAQs and all the sorts of stuff that you've had on your website. Even if it can be better in many ways, than having a live person, you can cover off layer one, at least this way, and then push them to live people or push them to the micro training library or the deeper training. It's an awesome way to do that. But the other thing that I love about it is it automatically tracks what the gaps are, what people are asking that you do not have an answer to. That's humongous. That will give you a wonderful roadmap for what to build next in terms of your sort of content plan. So that's an awesome one. And then the last part of this was we also came up with a model to serve the community that they really wanted to go after, which was developers and agents. So one of the things we're building is a new certification course. We're doing this in partnership with them. And we're one of the few that could do this, just like Kimberly's one of the few that could do this on small format homes. So basically becoming an expert on tiny homes and how they work and all the different kinds of tiny homes. They will be part of this initiative as well, and particularly as a way for us to highlight this type of property. So that's part of the strategy as well. And every piece of it has been reverse engineered so that they can repurpose the content. All of it can be used across multiple channels and across multiple avatars. So basically, we are really proactively answering all of the top questions, which we can go into as well if you like. But before I do that, Kimberly, do you think that sort of explains the strategy well enough as a real example of what we've done for one?
Well, what do you guys think? So, questions that you have on this. This is it's a new, I mean, we've known for a long time that we need to educate our buyers, but this is a new way of really formalizing it and going about it that many of our on-site, one of the things that I talk about, a lot of off-site builders have been using this technology for a while. So in the last video, we talk about, I gave a case study of a client that I worked with and their strategy that they had well before me. I don't take credit for the strategy. They had well before me was educate, 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 and they could show every single component. That was much easier to do in a more controlled factory setting. But that doesn't mean that we as on-site builders shouldn't do those same things too, because we can actually show what's going on offsite for us or on site for us. I mixed up my terminology there. When we're building out there on site and show every step of the process and talk about what happens at the frame walk and what is the inspection process. I mean, if you don't want home inspectors, talk about the rigid inspection process that your homes already go through, either with a third party engineer or the county or municipality or whatever, to give that buyer that peace of mind that they don't necessarily need to bring in their own third party to do something like that. So even though you're going to sell it with what are the inspection processes, and here's what we either pay for or what the county is already doing as part of our permitting, and the people who get credit for it, those are the people who win, right? So this. One more thought on this, just to kind of go way in the future, but not far in the future, is the search engine part of this, because it's no longer just search engine optimization like we've thought about it. It's now AI optimization. And having this stuff, so if you provide a video, you need to also provide the transcript of that video or a really good summary of the high points of that video, encouraging people to watch it, because those crawlers are going out there and they're going to start searching for your content that way, and you'll be what the AIs, the chat GPTs of the world will refer to, because you're first, because you're the expert on this. So don't wait till the big builders start doing this, or wait until your builder down the street starts doing this. Get ahead of this. This could be a great level the playing field opportunity for you if you're the one that does this. And again, you can be the builder that builds 10, 15 homes a year, or you could build 250 or 500 or whatever. It doesn't matter about the scalability of it.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And, and just a reminder, everything that we're telling you, you have a lot of this stuff already. You can build your own, or you can also consider showing up for others. Show up where your people live. Show up on webinars, panels, podcasts, go to conferences, show up and speak. All that kind of stuff works too. This is another way to sort of address this. It's better to build your own because you own the channel and you own the content. No question. But it's another way to get you out there, something to think about. And if you get even this far, which is literally stage one, this will be further than 99% of all the builders that are out there. You will have a huge leg up. So please consider that as another great reason to consider doing this, for sure.
What do you guys think? Are you excited? Does anybody want to start trying this?
I hope so.
I hope so. Let's we're obviously at the top of the hour. So
Yep.
Last thought that you want to leave them with?
Yes, I want you to think of it this way. This is the only kind of marketing that gains value over time. There's no other marketing that really does that. That has got to be the most important thing about making an investment like this. And in our opinion, it works in any market, truly. So
game changer. Yes. And you already have the tools for it. You don't have to go invest in anything really. So, I mean, it requires some thought and some planning, but you've already got all the tools for it. So why not? Why not? Thank you all for joining us today, spending an hour. I know time is so precious right now. Everybody is so busy. So I appreciate all of you. Go out there, make it a great day, and reach out to either of us if we can help you or support you through any of this. Thank you. The comments, I really appreciate the comments coming in. So everybody take care, and hopefully we will see you very soon, and maybe even in a couple of weeks at the Builder Digital Marketing Summit. Take care. Bye-bye, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.